Hey everyone, it's Kelly. Welcome back to another episode of Ask a Therapist. Today I'm answering a question that comes directly from one of the viewers, which is, how does growing up religious affect your view of yourself and your interpersonal relationships? Recovery from religious trauma seems to be a very common thread on our channel at this point in time. And I want to be really clear with people to help them to understand that the timing of your recovery from religious trauma is your own. There's no set timeline and no set point that you can say, I'm all done now. The reason that that's significant for you to understand is because I want you to not pressure yourselves into healing before you're ready. Growing up in most religions instills certain priorities and certain focuses into people. But as an adult who's in deconstruction, there are typically about 5 things that we can almost always say are appearing in your self-worth and your relationships with others. Number 1, performative. Everything on some level ends up being performative, which means you have to perform in order to deserve. When things are performative, it means that you can pass or fail. When things are performative, you can also do your best and still not have it be good enough. Think about it. If you are performing something, say you're a dancer and you're performing a dance and you perform this dance better than you've ever danced it before, but there's still some technical mistakes. So it's still not perfect. For those who are brought up in religious communities, we are taught regularly that it's about what you do, not about what you say. But when it's about what you do, if you do your best and it's still not good enough, then you're still not good enough. This performative nature impacts your interpersonal relationships too, because you're expecting others to perform to this level of interpersonal communication, usually that you've imagined is accurate. Maybe you read a book about 2 best friends, or you saw a movie and this friendship just stood out to you and imprinted itself on your mind. Then the expectation is that everyone else will measure up to that. And when they don't, you assume that they're not that good of a friend and assume that you're not worth being that good of a friend too. Because everything is based on how people perform. Now, let's be clear, a lot of society is based on how people perform. That's why there's performance reviews at jobs, which, by the way, do some research on this if you want to, but performance reviews are notorious for being the worst way to actually evaluate someone's job. The performative aspect leads into number 2, which is depersonalization and derealization in your relationships with each other and your relationship with yourself. It's sometimes only in depersonalizing our relationship with ourselves that we can accept the things that we're told to be in our nature to begin with. That we are inherently sinful, that we're inherently bad, that we need others to correct us all of the time in order to do things right. Many times we have to depersonalize and detach from ourselves in order to accept the negative things that people are saying to us about ourselves, which also makes us look at ourselves more negatively than we would otherwise. The depersonalization and derealization of our friendships, our relationships with others, with strangers even, we remove ourselves from the interaction because we're told that we can't trust ourselves and we can't trust our bodies or our instincts because our instincts are inherently sinful and our instincts are bad. Our instincts will take us to hell. Whatever it is that you've been told, you apply that then to understanding your instinct about other people. Maybe there's someone you get a bad vibe off of and you don't want to pass by them, but you detach from that and assume that you are, in your sinful nature, judging someone before you've met them. There's so many ways that we're taught to go against our gut instincts because we can't trust our guts, right? So when you can't trust yourself, why would you have a good relationship with yourself or with others? Because you're supposed to trust others implicitly, which is actually the exact opposite of how it should be. Number 3 is also related to performative, but it's not quite the same thing. But I call this the cat and the string toy. Have you ever played with a cat with one of those toys on a string and you kind of dangle it and they reach for it, and when they reach for it, you pull it away and they keep chasing it? That cat is never going to catch that toy on a string unless you let them. And for many of us, that's how we see self-actualization and actual self-esteem. Many people growing up in religious settings are taught that the highest thing that you can do, the best thing that you can do, is be good enough for God, because God will test you, and once you're good enough, he'll give you what you want. And so you keep trying and you keep reaching and you keep chasing that toy, and it never actually happens. And the assumption becomes, it's because I'm not good enough.
One day I will get good enough.
And that translates into everything you do. It's not just about your relationship with God. It's about your relationship with other people. You keep trying. If someone lets you down, you try harder. You work harder in those relationships than anyone else probably does, because you feel like that's the only way to actually get that toy, to get that goal. And that goal is actually just love. That goal is actually just acceptance, which you should have inherent in all of your relationships, especially your relationship with yourself. Number 4 is obsessive peacemaking. If you grew up in a Christian religion, you probably heard of the Beatitudes. Blessed are the peacemakers. Peacemaking is not all it's cracked up to be, especially because the way that most religious entities use it, it means
put your fight down.
Put your opposition away.
Put away the fact that you, in your sinful nature, don't want to obey the leaders that you have.
When your job is to make everyone happy, what you want and need will come last. And if there's no one else looking out for what you want and need, that means you never actually get what you want or need. And you become this person who believes their entire worth to be,
let's make everybody else happy.
That's how I'm happiest.
Now understand, any of you who are schooled in the Enneagram know this is the plight of the 9, and it's a hard balance to strike, especially for 9s who grew up in a religious environment and are now deconstructing, and I understand that. But when you really look at your inclination to make peace for everyone, when you really look at your inclination to drop what you need and what you want in order for other people to be happy, that's when you'll be able to see how much of it is just who you are, which is great, go with that then, and how much of it is your need to make peace in order for you to be seen as blessed, in order for you to be blessed, in order for you to have worth. You are required to lay everything you have down, because that's what Jesus did for his friends, right? Number 5 is kind of like the peacemaking, a little bit different. When people don't follow the rules, it hits you differently. When people don't conform to society or don't follow the rules of the religion that you follow, that's going to impact you differently. And a lot of that is because you've probably seen or felt yourself what happens when someone does not follow the rules of that religious organization anymore. Usually, they're cast out. Typically, they're not part of the relationship anymore, and there's really no plan for restoration. There's no plan for healing. There's not even any talk about it afterwards. You don't communicate with them. They don't communicate with you. They're gone. You're here. And that's it. And when it's you, you've lost your family, your extended family, sometimes your actual family. You've lost all these things and you have no way to heal. And that will then play into your understanding of self. And when you've wronged someone, you're going to assume they're going to kick you out of their lives. When a relationship gets fractured, you are not going to understand the things that need to be done in order to have restoration of that relationship, because the punishment of breaking a relationship with God is hell, right? Like there's forever separation. So you don't always understand what it means to do that in a relationship with a human. And so when other people break the rules, you are either going to be inclined to separate from them because you don't need to be
associated with that,
or it's going to cause you a great deal of anxiety because you don't know what happens next. It also plays itself out in relationships with people when they've wronged you. Often that means cutting it off.
We're done.
There's no reconciliation. There's no healing for anyone involved. It's just cut and done. But the more things that you cut and move away from, the more things stack up for you to dig through to get true healing for you. That's it for today. Thank you so much for being here. Please excuse my voice today. I waited as long as I could until it came back as well as it could for me to do this video. We're almost in Pride Month. Make sure you head over to the community channel or drop down here in the comments and let me know what topics you want me to cover in Pride Month. We're shooting for 2 videos a week all of June, so I need a lot of topics. Thank you so much. I will see you next week, and until then, take care of yourselves and each other.